So welcome. This is the first day of CS6320 Computer Vision. And this quarter it is being offered as a hybrid online class. And so today is really to orient you to what the class is about and what the expectations are and how we'll communicate so you feel really comfortable taking the class. My name is Professor Lynne Grewe, and this is the agenda of what we're going to go through. We actually just did, or you greeted each other. We did that off camera, but I'll introduce myself a little bit in a moment. I have some URLs that I'm going to give you today. That's the only thing I can give you. As part of that, the first URL is our website, and we're going to go over that, talk about the materials there. All the exercises, projects, the work that we'll be doing is posted on the URL as well as lecture material. We'll go over Blackboard and how we're going to be using it. Blackboard is our course management system on campus. And as particular, we're going to talk about the 3 deliverables besides our single exam, which will be during our final week. And we're going to discuss post-use, something called post-use exercises and projects. So to introduce myself to you, I'm going to skip over for a moment and go to our website, which I'll be giving you the URL in a minute. There's a little link here called Instructor. This is my name, of course, my email address, my phone, the room, my office room, and a little bit of background about myself, and I'll just talk to that. So I have a PhD in electrical computer engineering, so something in common with one of the students we met prior to the recording. And I'm from Purdue University, which is one of the largest graduating engineering schools in the world. In fact, when I graduated more engineers than any school in the world. I don't know if they still hold that title. So it's a great place to go because they have every kind of engineering you can think of, probably things you've never thought of. A lot of astronauts, right? Buzz, right? Not Buzz Lightyear, but Buzz Aldrin, right? And many others came from there. Silicon Valley was actually interestingly started out of Purdue. Did any of you know that? Oddly, because you've heard of Andy Grove. Any of you heard of Andy Grove? Who's heard of Andy Grove? Who is Andy Grove?
He's one of the founders of Intel.
That's right. And there's actually 7 founders. They all came from Purdue. And Intel is, well, maybe arguably one of the founders of Silicon Valley. So there's actually a pretty big presence in Silicon Valley of Purdue engineers, which is interesting to know. So it's a great university. I really like it. Okay, so I have some industrial experience also. I worked primarily for IBM, but in a previous life, I used to do chip design. And I worked for Intel, and I worked for Hughes Research and HP for a little bit doing that. But when I was at IBM, and when I did I kind of switched between my bachelor's and my PhD from the hardware into software, computer science. And my PhD was in computer vision. Okay, so this is the area that is, I guess, near and dear to me, and is one of the ongoing research areas that I work in. I've taught also kind of, I should update the number there, which tells you how old I'm getting. I've taught also a lot of internet classes here, and have done so really since kind of the start of the web explosion. All right. Okay, so what else about me? A little bit about my research. Right now, I run a very small lab. I have 2 graduate students, and they're going to graduate this year. They're working on a system called Blind Bike, and it is a system to help low vision people bike. It's a much harder problem than doing self-driving cars. We can talk about that later, but basically because of the instability of the bike wheels can turn, and you can see angles where you're only looking at asphalt when you're turning, the instability of the front wheel. It's a very challenging problem. Also, a lot of the self-driving cars are working on highways and those kinds of areas where lanes are clearly marked. When you're biking, that's really not the case. It's much more challenging. because you're usually running right alongside of parked cars, and so it's a very hard problem to solve, and we're going to solve parts of it, okay? So the system is not going to work perfectly by any means. It's not going to be ready for deployability, but it's a first step. And I like to work on really challenging problems. Nobody's actually worked on this particular problem, on assistive biking. So I find it exciting, and I'm hoping that you'll catch that same fever in this class. I love this class. It's one of my favorite classes because it's a class where you get to be creative and explore new ideas. And it doesn't matter how well it works. As long as you implement what you say you're going to do, I'm happy, okay? You propose an idea. If it works 5% of the time, then that's the truth of it. And it's a step forward, right? So computer vision, as one of our students said a little earlier, is a space where there's a lot of exploration to be made and a lot of progress to be made. And that's great. It's not boring. And you can choose ideas as wide as your imagination will allow you. Right? So in that sense, compared to, shall I say it, I teach web systems, this is a much more exciting class, just by nature of its field and what you can do. So hopefully you'll really enjoy it. It's a very human-oriented topic, which I also enjoy. It was one of the reasons why in grad school I decided to make that change. I got tired of working on machines and thought, God, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? And so I worked on things for medical imaging. I worked on things for unexploded ordnances, finding bombs underground. So I've tried to do humanistic projects. I've worked on a disaster relief system with the Red Cross. So I've worked on lots of different ideas that will involve media processing. I also work with different kinds of data, not just computer vision. So the techniques that you learn here will translate to other fields. So if you go and look at who Google is hiring to do their recommendation systems, they can be people in computer vision, and are. I shouldn't say can, they are. I've shared with some of you who've had me before, my husband was a VP. He was at Google, he's at Yahoo, he runs advertising, which is like recommendation systems, and so I know this intimately. His background was in image processing for satellite image processing. So the key there is understanding, right? Understanding of data. It doesn't matter what you do, whether it's speech, whether it's understanding social data for advertising, whether it's understanding imagery for driving a car, okay? Or exploring space. It doesn't really matter. Those ideas can translate. But I will say I think imagery is one of the more challenging fields out of all of those that I mentioned by its nature. Okay, so URLs. These are the two URLs, and I'm going to just kind of highlight that in a different color if I can. Let's see, I'm not sure because I think the links are there for our camera. Let's try to break our link. There we go. Okay, so these are the two URLs that I'm going to give you. This is the only thing I'm physically going to give you. The first one is the URL to our website. You saw it a moment ago, and we'll be going back. And then the second one is the URL to our Blackboard system on campus. So if you need to write these down, I'd like you to pause the video at this time. No, that would be great. Okay. Okay, so we're going to continue on now, and we are going to cancel, made that mistake, go to our website. So if you type in or click on the first URL, this is what you're going to go to. And for the purpose of the video, I'm going to kind of zoom in and out. This is what it looks like. You can see the links across the top, and I'm going to go through the website and give you a tour. Some of you have had me in class before, so this is going to feel very familiar to you. I tend to keep my websites super simple, with not a lot of design. For people who have low vision and people who have disabilities, they can augment it to their design very easily. Okay? All right, so we've already seen the first link, which is the instructor link, which shows how to reach me. I'm going to go next to the syllabus. Okay? So the syllabus, I'll encourage those who are watching to go and pause the video and take a look at that. Yes?
I think I'm-
Oh, I have the wrong syllabus. What in the world just
I think
happened?
you're in the wrong class.
Oh my goodness. Thank you for telling me that. That is crazy. They all look the same. There's the proof of it. But the images are different. Okay, on the front. Yeah, that is crazy. Nobody stopped me. Thank you. This is the correct one. Okay, and that is my dog, or one of my dogs, and that's one of my kids who is in the right-hand side. I'll have to tell you stories if you come to my office. There's the teaser to come about a paper I wrote with a bunch of undergraduates with my dog and a robot. That dog. That's the teaser to come and see. Okay, anyways, moving on. So the instructor, that's me. So that makes a little more sense, the description, right? One of our areas of research is computer vision. Okay, and I have to go to the syllabus now. All right, we have a series of books. One of them is actually online, which is the one I'm talking about in this light blue that you don't have to purchase. The other one, the top one, is available at the bookstore, but you can also get it online. The last one, you notice, is actually not at the bookstore, and you have a choice. And the choice that you make is going to depend on what final project you're going to do. You have a choice, as we'll see later, for a final project of either doing a mobile app or doing a Connect-based project. So depending on that, I'm going to make some suggestions as to the book that you want to do. There's some generic choices here. It's always possible to have none as a choice. And I've given you some suggestions in orange that I'll ask you to read through to decide to give you tips as to why you might want this book, depending on your personality. Now, what is not in here actually is a good Connect book. There's not that many, but for those of you who are doing that, I'll make those suggestions to you directly. It is also possible to find on the Safari Index on the library, possibly some of these books it changes, as well as some trade books that might be useful for you. Okay. All right. Oh, here is a Connect book. I lie, and an Android book. Okay, but we can look to see what's available on Safari. I'll take you there very quickly. By the way, how many of you, as a show of hands, have been to Safari before? So a little over half. Okay, so this is our library website. And you're going to need to use our library website in this class because one of the things you're going to do in this class is research. Remember I said to you I don't care how well your system works because you're going to propose an idea and just follow through on implementing the idea, and if it doesn't work, that's fine. I don't care. That's publishable, in fact, potentially, if it's something new that hasn't been tried before. To get that kind of information, what's been published in computer vision, there are two databases, ACM, and I'll send an email about that later, and IEEE. So those are the two large organizations, here's IEEE, that are involved in computer science. ACM, anyone knows what that stands for? No one? Try it. What's the C? Okay, Association for Computing Machinery, ACM. IEEE is worse. Institute of
Electronics, electronics engineering.
Electronics, yeah, and electrical engineering, exactly. But oddly, that seems very specific. IEEE is a much older organization, so the name is a little archaic, but it encompasses all of computer science and many fields of engineering, computer engineering and electrical engineering, also industrial engineering and some other fields too. So they publish journals and magazines. You can come in these, you can use it off campus with your NetID, and you simply can search. For example, I'll search on self-driving cars. Of course, we have to wait for the speed of the internet. That's a joke, okay? Wow, right? I guess I shouldn't feel so bad about my speed at home. Whew. Oh my goodness. It's usually not this slow. waiting. All right. I really did want to show you some results. Maybe IEEE is having some trouble. Let's try ACM. It doesn't usually go that slow. Okay, so here's its search box. Self-driving cars. Here we go. Improving improving blah, 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 blah on the example of a self-driving miniature car. Okay, improving scenario selection. That was you. You wanted to drive in your backyard, right? For simulations. Okay, whatever. Cyber physical systems. Analysis and case study of a self-driving car. So you can come in, you can click on that and read more details about the abstract, but one of the things you'll see is it actually has the paper in there, right? So if you wanted to do some research on self-driving cars or something, you can read it. Now, a lot of math, don't get scared, right? Don't get too bored. You know, you can get through it, or at least you can maybe get the gist of it, and I can help you, right? I can help you understand the global ideas of the paper, which is maybe what you, in essence, want. And I can also try to help find maybe simpler papers that are more accessible for you. But I think you have probably a good idea of gauging that too. The Safari website that I mentioned, the Safari index, I should say, so I'm going to go to the S, this is alphabetized, is one of the online books. And so, for example, let's see if they have anything on Connect. And here we have My Xbox One, Understanding the Connect setup is a chapter in this book. Connect here's Andrino with Connect. So they don't have any really good Connect books. Another package that you're going to use if you're doing for the last project is called OpenCV, but here we've got a bunch of books. Connect, there's Connect books out there, but it looks like it's just on the Safari. Safari doesn't have all the books available in the world. That'd be crazy, you guys would never be buying a book, right? And it changes, so there's no guarantee that this book that you're using is going to stay for the rest of the quarter. They don't change rapidly, but it could happen that it changes for you. All right, so that's another resource for books that's not bad, but again, it only has a selection. So my office hours I'm going to do a little differently this quarter. I usually have it in my office, but I'm actually have permission to use this room. And the idea there is I can have more students in here more comfortably. Our rooms are a bit small over in the SF building, so if people want to kind of work collaboratively during office hours, I have it until 1 o'clock, then I'm kicked out between 11:50 and 1 o'clock, okay? And so that's all posted here. Now, the agreement that I made in doing that is, it's been reserved for me, but if there's a strong need for this room, like someone needs to do a test or something that day, I'll have to move. I'll either put a note or I'll email you if I have enough notice. Right? I'm not going to bother emailing if they just come in and say we have to leave. But I should know. Susan, who does all the scheduling for the rooms, has, told me she should be able to give me some notice, but you never know. So that's the only caveat to that, but hopefully it'll be useful. It's an experiment, trying it inside of the classroom. If there's something that we need to talk about in private, then you can either let me know ahead of time, or what will happen is I'll just kick everyone out, which I have no problem doing, and then you and I can talk, okay? I also still have access to my office, which is right next door. They haven't re-signed it. If that stays the same, we can also go over there temporarily, but I can't guarantee, because I don't own that office anymore, if that'll stay for the entire quarter, but that's another option. Okay. So outcomes, we're going to understand the broad area of computer vision. We'll talk about current computer vision systems. You're going to learn how to do some research, and that you're going to make a proposal, okay? And I'll help you, I'll guide you through that process. You're going to obviously do some programming. As one of our students that we met before the tape said, this is a hands-on course. Boring not to be, right? I can't stand teaching theory courses. I'll do it when I have to, but I don't like it. Do you guys like taking theory courses? I mean, they're easier in some ways, but I just think they're quite boring. I like to do things, and I like to move rapidly. I don't work on the same research project because I get bored. I kind of feel like if I've done it once, then I've done it, right? Where you'll find people in computer vision, they'll work on the same problem for like 20 years. It's not me. I can't do that, so. All right, skills. So the requirement here includes 3240 and OOP, so I'm assuming you know some object-oriented programming language coming in, and I'm hoping it's Java, that you didn't take it somewhere else from another university as an undergraduate. If you need help in Java, I can help you with that, but that's something you'll need to come with me to office hours. Because we're going to be programming in Java, and those of you who do Connect, I'm going to strongly encourage to do in C#, not in Java. There is a open source package in Java that doesn't work very well. It's okay, it's kind of not great. The main language for programming Connect is C#. It's proprietary product. This is Microsoft, and so they control that. Those of you who are going to be doing the other project, mobile, will be doing Android. Unless you convince me you want to do iOS, then you'll be doing Swift. But I'll be supporting the Android in the class in terms of materials, okay? And that's Java-based. C# is not hard to learn. And like I did a thesis in a home system for people who fell down. Senior citizens would monitor, and if they fell down, it would detect when they fell down, and then it would call an emergency number, and it used voice recognition system. So that's a cyber-physical system, so I know how to program and Connect, and we did C#. And I did like kind of compare all those before we started that project, and I'm just telling you, I think the way to go is C#. But if you're really adamant for doing Java, then it's possible. One of the things you'll be doing, because it is online, is YouTube video submissions. That's really important to know how to do. The syllabus here, for lack of a better place to put it, talks about how to do that from a mobile phone, okay, and how to submit it. I will ask you to be putting it in what's called unlisted mode, so that we don't have to invite each other to view it. If it's in private mode, that just becomes oddly something that we can't handle. I've tried to do private mode, and it's like, I didn't get the email, and blah. So I'm like, okay, unlisted mode, what it means is if you give the URL to someone, they can access it, but it's not searchable on YouTube, okay? So we're gonna do that mode. All right, grading, there's the formula that's listed here on the syllabus. You can definitely please read that. I usually use it unless there's something that goes wrong in the class that very unexpectedly, which never has happened. So 70% projects. This kind of reflects the fact that in my classes, I just like you to do things and learn skills that are marketable so you can go have your career goals, right? And I don't find testing so important, but I'm forced to test you. So we have one exam, which is worth 20%. And class participation is 10%. And we'll do that in a couple different ways that is completely objective, which means through exercises and something we'll talk about, as you saw in the agenda, called post-use. Okay, so I'll ask you to please read the rest of this. The two things that I'll point out is we have a late policy. I don't accept late work unless you have a valid excuse like a documented illness. So you'll have to talk to me about that. If you're going to travel or something, everything is already posted with all the due dates of everything for the entire course. My suggestion is to work ahead so you can enjoy your trip, and definitely you can submit it ahead of time. Okay, accommodations, this is the other thing that I want to point out in the syllabus, is that if you are disabled in any way, they do not let me know that. It's your choice to educate me, and I would strongly encourage you to do that. I want you to help you as much as I can, but I will be asking you to go through the Student Disability Resource Center. I'm required to ask you to do that, and they will assist you. You can get readers, you can get help with note-taking, there's lots of different things, more assistance on exams, things like that. but of course, you have to go through that process. And if the number is listed here, but if you need more contact, let me know. Okay, so this is just a list of some of the topics, but we'll see some of those on the actual outline. And this is discussing Blackboard, which I'll just do a visit of in a moment. Okay, so this is the syllabus. Please take a look at that. The 3 remaining links on the top navigation bar are links, and you can imagine they are just that, a set of links that are hopefully organized by some sensical meaning, like here's OpenCV, right? Okay. Here we have Connect for C#. There's some other libraries that I'm talking about. Here's some software IDEs, installation tips, and so on. Java API, I mentioned we'll be using Java. And here's conference lists, here's some various lectures that might be useful, and so on. Projects we'll get to in a moment. Let's look at the outline. Okay, so the outline, and I'm going to zoom down and then zoom up, is organized like a table. And I'm going to just point and read to them what it says since I zoomed out. This top one says week, so this tells you the week in which you're going to go over that material, the intended week. This is a module column. It gives both a number, here's 1, here's 2, they're generally in sequence, along with a title. So this is on our visual system, right? The human visual system, how it works. Number 2. Number 3rd column, it says assignment or project. It means kind of when we're starting that project, right? When we can start thinking about that project. There's a separate link, as I said, on projects, and that's where you would go to see them all together. And then the last one is materials. And materials include reading assignments, okay? And also class lectures. Every week I will be sending you an email. You've already gotten an email, hopefully, that's also posted on Blackboard. And I'm going to skip over there. This was the second URL that I gave you. If you're enrolled as a student, unless you're a brand new student, I'm assuming you all know how to use Blackboard. Is there anyone who doesn't here? If you're watching this as a video and that's the case, you can come in and see me. So I'm going to go over this somewhat quickly. I have a lot of classes here, huh? Okay, you will have on your Blackboard, it'll look a little different after you log in, but there will be our 6825 class listed. So you'll click on that, and you can see the very first thing that comes up is the announcement link. So I've sent out announcements that I also will email. So like, for example, information about our mandatory class. The other thing I gave you was a week 1 to-do list. So here's the week 1. And so I'm going to read this, but this is what you'll be getting remotely. And then we're going to switch back to the outline to see what we're talking about. So this is the first thing. If you're not in today's class, hopefully you're going to be watching that lecture that we're going to get out hopefully soon for the video we're watching now. Get the book, familiarize yourself with our website. That's what we're in part doing today. Okay. The other thing I've asked you to do is to go to eclipse.org and install Eclipse, set up Eclipse for Java. Eclipse is an IDE. If you've used, like, for example, what IDEs have you used? Let's say for the people, NetBeans maybe, right? Visual Studio, Microsoft Visual Studio, not for Java, but for other languages, right? Perfect. Okay, so we're going to use Eclipse. Eclipse is one of the most popular open standard IDEs out there. It's used a lot in industry, has a lot of support for different frameworks that exist, so it's a great IDE, and it's free, so that's terrific. Later, depending on your choice, we'll either be installing Android Studio. This is just a note to tell you that we don't have to do it this week. But Android Studio or Microsoft Visual Studio for C++. Okay? So the next thing I ask you to do is go through the materials for week 1 outline. So let's go back. What does that mean? We're in our outline page, week 1. So this is week 1, this is week 1. So these 2 modules you have to go through. Does that make sense? Any questions about that? Okay, so that means you'll be doing reading and going through the online materials. There's also a link to a project, but let's go back before we continue going down this outline to our week 1 to-do. So that's great. And then I even tell you and remind you in our weekly to-do list what you should maybe be doing. So we're going to talk about project 1, but project 1 proposal is due on April 19th. That's actually a ways away, right? It's not like this week or even next week. But I'm trying to tell you this is going to be one of the first things we're doing, and you're going to be doing some reading for that, so, or looking at some stuff, so you're going to be choosing a topic. We're going to talk about what that means, but it's a research tutorial. Some of you have had classes from me before and know exactly what that's about, but we'll see it today. Another thing we're going to talk about is something called post-use. Post-use. So every week I'm going to ask you to, on the Blackboard discussion board, make a posting of a question and an answer that is related to that week's materials. I may use them in my exam at the end of the quarter. And again, this is just a reminder, some of these things turn off. You're not going to be able to, after the due date, submit the post-due. So we have that late policy for everything. But I'm just kind of early on trying to remind you in orange. Okay, remember, because we're starting, don't forget the date. So let's take a look. Let's go back to the outline. And you'll notice there's something here in orange. And I'm going to zoom in for the camera and for you. It's in our second module. And it says post due for the week, due 11 p.m. April 3rd. That's this Sunday. Okay? And that's important because it's going to turn off. Okay? You won't be able to submit after that. You can submit tomorrow if you want, just as long as it's before. You don't have to wait till 11 p.m. Just that's the last time that you can do it. Now, you'll notice that for a week I'll have one post due in one of the modules. And I generally place it where I think that there might be some more interesting material to ask questions about. Like, I think the first one where I'm talking about Unix and stuff like that is really not very interesting. Okay, the introduction lecture maybe, okay? But I think, human abilities, that's pretty cool, right? Understanding how your eyes work, how your vision system works is interesting. So maybe you want to grab a post-due from there. But it doesn't matter. Anywhere in week 1, but I'll ask you for not stupid questions, right? Like, what is the name of the second link on her website? That would be something, because this is worth points, right? Where it comes is in participation points. So be serious about doing it and thoughtful. Okay, back to our weekly to-dos. So one of the things before you leave I'm going to ask you to do is to sign up, but we'll do it after the camera is done, on a spreadsheet that we're going to use together, a Google spreadsheet. Another thing I'm asking you to do is to subscribe to the discussion board, Blackboard, discussion board, class Q&A, and hit subscribe. That way you can post comments, questions, and everyone's going to get it. Okay? Where do we find that? Okay, and that's the end of my weekly to-dos. So let's take a look at that. Oops. I'm going to come down. Here's the discussion board. Okay? And we have right here the class Q&A. So you click on that, okay, and you hit subscribe. Okay, and now you're subscribed. That's as simple as it is. So that's one of the things I asked you to do for week 1. Okay, let's go back to the outline. And I'm going to zoom down to kind of show you this table again. So you notice that the colors change. That's just to help indicate a week change. Okay, colors don't really mean anything beyond that. Okay, so here's week 3, it's blue. Week 4 is green. Week 5 is purple. Week 6 is, I don't even know what that color is, misty green. 7 is a pink. 8 is a white. 9 is gray. And then this is, we will start assigning it in the middle. It has to do with Android and Connect. Okay, there's no week 10 because that's really like a floating week for that last material, right? So things will move depending on that. I will say if you've had like a graduate class for me called software engineering, I think this is an easier class in the sense that there's less very different topics that we cover. We're all concentrated on vision, right? There's different aspects of vision from the early stages, right? We're talking about human vision, we're talking about sensors, then we'll talk about mid-level vision, which is like feature recognition. Someone said they want to detect lines, right? Think about how you're on a highway, right? And you have the lines growing across the white lines. That's one of the ways they know when you are crossing and doing lane changing, okay? Because GPS is not accurate enough. Okay, that commercial GPS is not accurate enough, so they have to use vision, right? So this is what I'm saying. That's like mid-level vision, right? Doing simple things like line extraction, that kind of stuff. Then high-level vision is where you do understanding. So we start, and our course kind of reflects that, with talking about the low level, how images are created, right? This is the topic of Module 2. We start talking about simple image operations, which is leading into middle level vision. Now, depending on what your purpose of your application is, it might be for gaming. It might be you want to clean up images. Maybe you have a heads-up display. You're a pilot. And all you want to do is they're flying through the fog, and you want to clean up and sharpen the images, right? You might only be doing low-level vision. You may never be doing mid-level or high-level vision, right? So depending on what your purpose is, you're going to do different things. So simple image operations, we're going to be talking about probability. That's really important. I think we crossed the lane with 99% probability versus I think I crossed the lane with 0 or 1 or 10 or 40 or 50. And what do you do, right? What decision do you do? What you might do for a cancer recognition system is a lot different than what you might do for some kind of a gaming situation, right? Safety. So safety is a big issue, potentially with some vision systems. So understanding how to describe your certainty is really important. And that's true with, as I mentioned to you before, like recommendation systems, right? It's statistical in nature. So statistics is an important topic in any kind of understanding of systems. Understanding systems. Okay, color. We'll talk about color. We'll talk about geometric relationships. So we're kind of getting a little bit further into our mid-level processing. We'll talk about image noise. We'll talk about binary image processing, features and texture. And now we're starting to get into the latter parts, okay, what's called high-level vision. And that is things like trying to find pieces of stuff and doing recognition. Segmentation, fitting, recognition. We'll talk about data structures. We'll talk about motion. Okay, so motion is something that sometimes we want to detect, right? There's a vehicle coming near me. How fast is it coming near me, right? Motion detection. Some other topics that kind of don't fit any particular place, they involve all levels of vision, are things like motion, 3D imaging, right? 2D versus 3D. Image databases is kind of an application, so image-based search, image-based retrieval, finding things by images. And some other topics dealing with like remote sensing, robot vision, navigation, surveillance, compression. These kind of 9 is kind of a hodgepodge of material, as you can see. And then we have our Android-specific and our Connect-specific information. And I'm going to update some of the stuff in Android. I haven't had a chance to do yet. And I'm also going to put a link for Android to a mobile class that I teach that has a lot of information about Android, more than I'm going to put on the computer vision page. Okay? But the Connect will be all self-contained here. There isn't another class that I teach Connect in. Okay, any questions about the outline before we talk about projects and exercises? No? You all good with the idea? Okay, and the weekly to-dos and how it correlates to the outline? Okay. So we have not many exercises in this class. We have a few. And one of our first ones is week 1, which I reminded you of in the week 1 to do, which is to please install Eclipse for Java, okay? Now notice it says it's not turned in. Some exercises I'm not going to ask you to turn in, but it doesn't mean you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't do it. The ones that aren't turned in, I don't put a due date and time on them, but by implication in week 1, and by implication that it's in your week 1 to-dos, you need to finish it by week 1, okay? If you have problems with finishing it, that's when you either A, post to the questions, Q&A, right? Ask, and we're going to pair you up with someone today as kind of just a get to know someone based on maybe your inclination in the last project we're going to talk about shortly. Someone that you can get assistance from. And then see me during office hours or email. So depending on the other option that we have is possibly meeting virtually. I do this more with my online classes. And what that means is, and I'm going to ask someone to please log into Blackboard. Reza, would you mind and help me out?
Yes.
And then and the rest of you are welcome to do it too, but we're going to go to Course Tools, and there's a tool here called Collaborate that I'm going to launch hopefully. And under Collaborate, I'm going to go ahead and create a session for Reza and I to create. And I just need to, I'm going to have to take this down because I can't quite see it very well. I'm going to make this a long-running session. Okay. So when you come in, you're going to see this always here for the rest of the class, and he's going to join me. And the first time you do this, it will download some software. It'll take a little while. If Blackboard updates that module, Blackboard Collaborate, you may have to reinstall it. Every time you join the room, it'll install a little Java file for you. This is actually a Java program to run. Okay, so we have to wait for it to come up. Make sure there it is. Okay. So this is an online tool that does audio-video conferencing. I should have actually done it from my laptop because this particular machine has no camera. So we won't be able to see each other, but that's useful. So having a microphone and a speaker, you can buy cheap headphones that you can plug into your laptop or your computer, really critical, right? Because otherwise this is like chat, and that's painful, right? To get help. I don't like that. But if I had a microphone, I could click talk, I could click video. Right now it says no video sources found, but my picture would show up here. And I think Reza's going to nicely connect. He'll be added as a name to this room. And then one of the things that's really great, and I'll show you, is I can control his desktop. He can share his desktop with me. I can even type into it. Now, I work with my graduate students like this all the time. I will have to say, and so I'm probably like the most expert at it in the whole university. It's a little slow. And sometimes the video isn't great and the audio's not great, and we'll revert to phone once in a while. And then we'll talk on the phone while we work remotely. But it can be better than having an hour drive, right? Depending on the whole situation. In order for us to use this together, it means that we have to connect via email to set an agreed upon time to meet. I'm not sitting on this thing all day long, as you can imagine. I'm not sitting on it at all, except when I need to, right? When I have a predefined meeting time with someone, okay? So we're gonna let Reza, he's gonna flag me when he's done that. But the other things on here is a link to our syllabus. We also have a link here in Blackboard to course materials, course tools besides Blackboard Collaborate, and Reza's an expert because he's also a TA, so he's going to forgive me not watching this while he's setting that up. Another very useful tool is email. So you can come in here and you can email and you can see people's names, right? So if you want to say, hey, I need to email and I forgot their email address, you can just say, hey, I want to, email here, son, right? Like that. And then you can, of course, do attachments, all the other things that you might normally do. Okay, so the two places that you're going to be turning in items is going to be through the discussion board. Okay? So if you click on the discussion board, this is where you're going to find your post use for the week. Now they're all there, so if you know you're traveling, you can do a post you earlier. But you just simply come in here, right, create a thread, and post your question and answer. Okay? Some other things you'll notice down here, we're about to talk about projects, is here's like, for example, project 1 proposals. I tend to put things here that I want other people to see, right? Like the ability to see in class. You can see what other people are doing, right? And sometimes it'll be required to do that. Here's project 3. Project 2 is not really here except for a sharing discussion board. You'll also have a link here called projects. And you'll notice project 2, phase 1, I have this turned off because I don't want you to even think about phase 2 before you'll be turning in phase 1. Yeah. But, so mine looks a little different, but these are the only two things. Project 2 will be the only thing we'll turn in this way, which is hidden from others. Our assessment link, I'm going to ask you, and I'll send out an email. There's an intro survey. I just like to have people do it. It doesn't count towards any grades or anything. I just get to know you better individually. In online classes, I like to sometimes do that. Okay, so let's go back. Let's talk about projects. Are you on?
I am on, but I don't see you in the.
Huh. Okay, well, let's not worry about it. When you get to the point, hopefully, this is self-explanatory. That is odd. I don't know. Are you in the?
I'm in the computer vision room.
Right, yeah, so am I. Okay, we can look at that later. Maybe there's something wrong with Blackboard, not usually. Oh, here, someone joined this session. There we go. So we can see her. Who's that? Sai? Who's Sai? Are you on a laptop? Are you doing it from a laptop? Can you show us your camera? Can you click the video? Yay! There she is. And if she has a microphone?
Yes.
Go ahead. Click it and talk.
Hi.
Okay, well, we're in the same room. That proves she's doing it. Feedback. That's called feedback. If you're an engineer, you know what that is. Okay, or maybe computer scientist. Okay, very good. So that's the idea. And let's do desktop sharing. Hey, can we do that together? That's the thing I thought would be cool. So I'm going to share my desktop with her, which is not too exciting. But I would go to Share, Tools, Applications, Start Sharing. It says, messages about privileges. You can share the entire desktop, or you can just share a particular application. What it'll do for the person sharing is, do you see that yellow rubber band? That's what it'll look like. Okay? And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to stop sharing my desktop, and I'm going to ask her to share her desktop with me. So you go to Tools, Application, Sharing, Share. Are you finding it? Oh, there we go. It's a little slow. Okay. So are you sharing the entire desktop?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Do you have any other applications up? You probably do. So I'm going to request cursor control. I know I can't make this bigger for the video, but this says request cursor control. That means I want to control her desktop. So I'm going to say this. She's going to get a message. That's her desktop. It says this. She has to say yes, please. Okay? So now at this point, I can come in here and I can control her desktop, which is really hard to see, isn't it? Can you bring up another, do me a favor, can you bring up Word as something prominent? Because for some reason, did you share the entire desktop or just this application?
No, but the entire
Because it looks like it's only that application.
Alright, yeah.
sharing applications. Application sharing. Okay, so now she's going to have the entire, now she was just sharing that application, okay? That's why I couldn't get out of it. So now I can, she has, for example, something up here, it's a browser. Now I'm going to go ahead and request control, because we had to stop and restart. So stop being busy, there we go, okay, great. She's going to say yes, and now I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to bring up a tab, and I'm going to maybe change this, and I'm going to go to, I don't know, abc.com, whatever. My point is like she could have a compiler up. You can see how slow it is. It's a little aggravating. So there'll be times when I'll say, hey, this just isn't working, you're going to have to come in. That's the limitation, right? And like I said, I'm pretty good at pretending I'm in 1970 or 1980 modems or something. But there's a limit where it's just like, this is crazy. Or you can't understand when I'm talking to you. Some of the other things that you can do is you can surf the web together. You can have a whiteboard for doing drawing and stuff like that. I find those kind of limited use because I think the tools are a little clunky to use. All right, so let's, you can say thank you and kill, and then you can exit out of that collaborate. I'm going to do the same. And we're going to go over back to talk about the projects, and that'll be the last thing we do. Okay, there are 3 projects, projects 1, 2, and 3. What are they? Project 1 is just about learning and demonstrating that learning through creation of a research tutorial. So you're going to make a tutorial on a topic that's research oriented. I want that topic to be related to your project 3. So I'm actually going to talk about project 3 before I talk about project 1, because I want that to help you make a proposal on something new that you're going to do. Okay? And so that's great, you're ahead of the game. If we make it something totally different, then you're going to have to redo that work and to create a good proposal for project 3. So we don't want to do that. Project 2 is a simple programming project. So it's to make some of the very simple features of like a Photoshop project. So you're going to learn how to load in an image. You're going to learn how to do certain kinds of manipulations on that. We're not going to do drawing and all that because that's not really, we're not interested in graphics per se in this class. That's more graphics. But we'll be doing image manipulation. So to help you with that, I have an initial exercise. Okay? And if we scroll down, it hasn't been assigned yet because it's in exercise, it's in week 2. Next week I'll assign it. This is due, okay, April 14th, midnight. This will help you with your with this project 2, okay, your project 2 programming. In fact, it says that. This will help you with project 2. So I've given you some code. In this directory. I've given you something called imageapplication.java, okay? I've given you, that's the main application, something called image data. This is a class to represent the actual image data. The image frame, quit dialog, and the about dialog are just dialogues, and the image frame is for displaying the image. You will not have to change those 3 pieces of code. But it's good to read through it. Okay, I've commented it to see what it does. But I've also talked about it right here. What is image application? This is the main class that will launch from the application. It'll launch a file dialog. That was that other class we saw, which basically asks the user to load which file do you want to load, right? Which image. You're going to open an image. Okay? I tell you how I want you to change this a little bit. Okay? And then I say that you have to add this kind of code here. Okay, that there's some code that's commented that you have to on-comment. And then you have to create an instance of your image data class. And finally, you're going to add 2 methods in the image data class called brighten and save. Here's image data. These are the ones that you're going to create and what they should do. Now you notice these don't have anything you have to change, but they're there, and they say what the purpose of them are. This again repeats image data and what you need to do. You needed to create a brighten method. What that's going to do is it's going to take the image and make it lighter, brighter. So it's going to visit every pixel in the image and brighten it. And you're going to by then know what pixels are. You're by then going to understand what brightening is, okay? Because you've gone through week 2 material. But I've given you a little pseudo algorithm of what it means to brighten, which is just to increase the value of the pixel by some value. Everyone gets 10 values lighter. Everyone gets 30 values lighter, depending what you pass it. Okay, that's going to help you finish your project 2. Project 2 has more than the brighten function. Let's see what it has. It has thresholding, making negatives, doing edge detection, and doing contrast tracing. These are actually small pieces of code that you could actually write maybe in anywhere from 2 to maybe 10 lines of code. Okay? They're not complex algorithms. So this is actually not a hard project, but it's a project where you're coding. Right? So, and it's a good place to start. Image processing.
And
is
it's
what
all
we're
in
doing.
Java.
Yes, and I've given you those Java code to start with, okay? And that's also linked here, same thing. So it talks about each one. Again, these are the files, okay? But the exercise will start you slowly. You won't be doing everything. And then there's 2 phases to it. Again, phase 1 is to get some of it done. It's only worth 20 points because I don't really grade it. It's kind of just a way to make sure you're on time. But it is worth points, roughly 10% of the project. And then phase 2 is where you actually turn everything in and then it's graded traditionally, right? Okay? So this is just, again, between the exercise and phase 1, I'm just really like, because phase 1, by the way, is really kind of not much more than the exercise, but it's just really trying to get you there. Okay? All right, so project 3, I wanted to talk about that, and we'll only be about 10 more minutes before I talk about project 1. Project 1, we know, is a research tutorial. You're going to read about a topic, and then you're going to summarize it in your own words in a web-based tutorial. That's why you got the account on Puzzle sent to you from Richard. Right? You should have gotten if you were already registered. If you're newly registered, you need to email me so I can get you an account. It's a web server account. What is this? This is interesting. This is maybe it's not done very much in many classes, but you're going to tell me what you want to do. I have a lot of guidelines, okay, to help you, but you're going to choose one of 2 options: Connect, or option 2 is mobile image application on Android. Okay, now I have asked you to be a little more specific here than just anything you want to do. So let's look at mobile. By far, look, it's got a whole website just for the mobile option, right? I want to guide you. I want to make sure that you can do this, okay? So yes, there's a lot of information. I tend to do that in my classes, but it's really to help you, okay? So I'm asking you to create an application, but not just any application. This is the goals. Here's the goal. It has to be for someone who is low vision or blind. I like to do human things, right? I like to do things to help people. Hopefully not like to hurt people, right? Technology can be used in any bad way you can think of. But my hope is to help people. So I'm going to say we're going to do that. We're going to do humanistic helping apps. So we're going to focus on low vision people. It could be, for example, here, trying to find a door. Let's suppose you're a blind person, you've got a phone, and you need to get out in an emergency. You could walk around and you could say, door, 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 and you could walk towards it, right? Maybe you want to make the app that when someone goes to Starbucks and gets their coffee, they can tell the difference between the pink and the yellow packets of sugar. Right? I don't know, right? That could be helpful. Maybe you want to know the difference between the salt and pepper shaker on their kitchen table. It's your imagination. Okay? Maybe you want to help someone walk across the sidewalk, following the lines. So your imagination, even though that seems a little limiting, blind or low vision, doesn't have to be completely blind. It could be assistive rather than completely, there's a lot that you can do. Okay, so this talks about what the goals are. This talks about what the input is. It's Android. If you really want iOS, you can talk to me. This talks about the fact that you will need to do research. And that's where Project 1 comes in. That'll be the research. So here's the problem, chicken and egg. You might not know what exactly you want to do for mobile, if you're choosing mobile. But hopefully you can find something that attracts you, and even if it changes, the research will be helpful from Project 1. Okay, so you can take a look at this. This talks about getting started. You're going to be making a proposal for this. You're going to be describing what you're going to try to do. Okay, I want to cross the street. I'm going to assume there's white lines. I'm going to use color. I don't care about the fact. I'm going to look for long strips of white in my, and I'm going to look for left and right, and I'm going to make them walk in the middle, right? So as much as you can describe, hopefully you've read what other people have done, and you have some ideas from that, okay? That it's not completely like, woo, just my own mind. But I love to work with new students like you who aren't always bogged down by what other people have done, right? You can have your own creativity, and I encourage that. As I told you, I don't care if this system works or not, as long as it runs and you did what you said you were going to do. You tried it, right? So that's the key, and I'll emphasize that as we get closer. But remember, these are hard problems. Finding the pink versus yellow is not necessarily that easy. What if they're laying on top of each other, right? There's all these scenarios, like this guy over here wants to drive in his backyard, right, that you might not imagine. So it's only going to work in certain environments, possibly. That's fine with me. You can define that up front. Blind to bike, right? We're not trying to bike at night. Okay, that doesn't work. Okay, so this is the, a realistic restriction, right? These are operating conditions, and so you'll be thinking about those things too. All right, so that is the essence of Project 3. Project 1 is simply a research tutorial. I make you do web. Why? I think that you should all be literate in web. You should be able to publish to the web. Dreamweaver is my tool of choice, for doing this kind of web authoring. You can get trial versions, but you can even make web pages, God forbid, from Word, right? File save as HTML. It's that easy, okay? And then you have to upload it using a tool like Putty, God forbid again, or something that has a GUI interface like an SSH client or something. And when we get to that point, I'll send out some links and stuff. But do remember, email me if you haven't gotten an account from Richard, because you'll need an account on the web server. But again, the topics are up to you. Hopefully you go for something. Here's some suggestions, but connect, how to track the gait of a user, right? Maybe, you're going to be watching someone at home and you want to see how fast they're moving. How to detect trips. So what are the options for Connect? We actually didn't look at that. How did I focus the Connect one? Cyber physical systems. So this is different. It's not for just low vision people. It doesn't move with you like a phone does. It doesn't quite make sense totally for, you could find an application for low vision or blind people, but I'm looking more at in-home use. And what I'm suggesting you do is look at the issues of an older person at home. Like that system that we've published, that I said I did research on. So again, we're trying to be human-oriented. The one is kind of low vision blind. This is more the older person at home. So following their gait could be useful, because that's an indicator that they're having physical problems, instability, right? You choose what you want to do, okay? If there's something else that really attracts you that doesn't quite fit in one of these modules, you can talk to me about it, but I'm going to have to be convinced, kind of like you doing iOS. I have literature on iOS on another website, but I just think that for this class, given you've done some Java programming, it will be a more natural flow for you to do Android. And also, you don't need a Mac to develop. If you want to do iOS, you have to have a Mac. That's not true for Android, right? So there's more flexibility there. Okay, any questions? We're actually done. I know I kept you longer by 20 minutes. This is an important part. Questions? How do you reach me? Email, office hours on the syllabus. You can also find instructor information both in the website as well as on Blackboard. We can set up conferences that at a time that works for both of us for Blackboard Collaborate.
So is this and the final the only times we're meeting?
Correct.
So we don't have an agenda?
That time that was published was supposed to be today's time, the middle one in May. Now, we're only going to do one exam. And it's only worth 20% of your grade, right, as per the syllabus. Any other good questions? So let's pair you. And I'm going to go ahead and I'll ask the gentleman to say thank you to him. Thank you.